Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Henchman's Memoirs. This is our ongoing coverage and discussion and review of the Dungeons of Drakkenheim campaign. My players are currently involved in this otherwise excellent campaign adventure, but we need to talk today a little advice for DMs that are getting ready to run the Catacombs under St. Vitruvio's Cathedral, because there are some serious problems with the way this dungeon is presented, and you need some prep work before you can get in there and do it. So before we get to the problems with the adventure, I do have to say this particular dungeon, I love the adventure overall. I love the Dungeons of Drakkenheim. And what I like about this particular dungeon is that it's a puzzle dungeon with some fighting in it and some other good stuff. And overall, I love that idea. It's a great change of pace for the players. It's a fun chance to do something a little different than all of the faction intrigue that they've been dealing with, and then, of course, all of the combat and stuff. But it's a good dungeon. It's a good idea. But the way it's presented in the text, I don't know if they didn't have enough time to go back and edit this properly or get it proofread or play tested by some people, but there are a couple really big holes in the way the dungeon is described. So I'm just going to clue you guys in. If you're planning to run this, obviously this is going to be spoilers if you're going to be playing through it, but I'm going to give you guys my take on this so that you guys can run it a little more smoothly than I did. So the two main problems with the dungeon, the first one has to do with the light puzzle itself. So there are two stairways that come down from St. Vitruvio's Cathedral up above. And whichever one the players come down, they're going to come across these angel statues that are standing in these alcoves, okay? And each angel statue has a shield, and it's bathed in this kind of heavenly light that's coming down from above. And the shield in the angel's arm can actually be moved out to a 45-degree angle, so a beam of heavenly light shoots down the corresponding corridor, and the players get part one of being able to figure out, okay, this is a light reflecting puzzle like I've played in Lara Croft or wherever you're familiar with this from, maybe Legend of Zelda. And so the players are gonna clue onto that pretty quickly, and they're gonna start trying to figure out how to solve this light beam puzzle. So the first problem that you encounter, the way the text is worded, the dungeon dudes tell us that there are these aperture doors in the dungeon, and that these doors have these sort of a seal or a plug or a lens in them that's like this thick glass lens right in the middle, and surrounded by like this bronze sort of ring. And when the light shines on these, that's when they will open, okay? The problem with the way the dungeon is laid out on the map is it doesn't tell us where these doors are. For example, here, it's just closed off on the map. This is just closed off. There's no sign of a door. There's no sign of where these aperture doors are, right? That have these rings in them. Because the more I look at the dungeon, it looks like some of them are just supposed to be blank stone, where you can't see this lens sort of aperture thing, right? It says that there's one here in this dungeon, but it doesn't really tell you what this door looks like, if they all have these lenses in them or not. And the other thing, this is just an editing problem. So they describe this statue in a block of text, and then they talk about interacting with it, and they talk about how if you move the shield, it'll send this light beam down. But what they don't tell you is that as soon as that light beam goes down the hallway, the characters will see this door open, right? The fact that this door opens as soon as they do that, or this door opens as soon as they do that, that fact isn't revealed until you get to the text of this, read the descriptive text of this whole area, and then in the bullet points under the block text, it's like, oh yeah, this door will open as soon as they're playing with this statue. Obviously, that piece of text needs to be here because this is when it happens. All right? So I started acting like all of these doors that can be opened by the light beam had the aperture in them. It doesn't specifically say that in the text, but that's what I started doing. Now the problem is when they get down to this half bowl room, there are two doors here that apparently do not have apertures in them because they are not actually supposed to be opened with beams of light. So they don't have the plug in them, right? But like, for example, when I was laying this room out for my party, this hallway is shown on the map, but there's just a wall here. There's no indication on the map, hey, there's an aperture door here, or is it a secret door? Like, how am I supposed to know looking at the map? And again, most of the time, they don't describe that when they describe the room in the box text, and they just, when you look at this, it just describes this room. It doesn't describe the opening of this door at all. Well, what you have to do is you have to get the light beam going this way, and then you have to find a shield that'll allow you to bounce it this way. So what is clearly shown on the map is where the different shields are, and they even put little X's where you're going to want to bounce light beams, where the players are going to want to bounce light beams in order to solve the multitude of puzzles on this floor. So they're able to, once they get a shield, they're able to bounce and get another shield behind this, and then they can start, then they'll be on a roll and they can start getting more and more shields. They're going to need, I think, 4 or 5 at least shields in order to solve all the problems. The other fun thing is, and to me this is a feature, not a bug. For example, my players came down this stairway first. Well, they can find out that there is a light puzzle on this side of the dungeon, but what they can't do is actually find any shields over here. There aren't any shields to be found. They're just looking around and figuring out, oh, okay, there's some kind of light puzzle here. I think my players would have spent most of the session over here messing around with this if I hadn't dropped them a hint. One of the players said under his breath, maybe we need to see what's on the other side, but then they kept trying to solve what was happening with this fountain and everything. And I just reminded him that he said that. And so they came over here and they were able to get shields pretty quickly and then start bouncing the light beams around. But basically, before you go in, you need to decide, are some of these secret doors that when a light beam hits them, they open, and so the party just has to, for example, find this door by luck? Or do all of them have these glass lenses in them such that you want to notate that on your copy of the map, which is what I started to do. I started to just draw doors in because it's not clear in the text what counts as an aperture door and what doesn't. There's a second kind of door that aren't just opened by bouncing light into them. And down here, up here, there are situations where you actually have to bounce 2 light beams into a statue or a portrait or something like that. So you end up having to, do this number. So you need 2, 4, I guess 6 shields, to solve this. And then it's the same thing down here where you're bouncing it multiple times to open up different areas. Okay, so settle that in your own mind, mark up your own map before you go in, and it shouldn't be too tough to solve the why are all the doors the same or not. But then you're going to run into the second big problem in this dungeon, and there's a Reddit user who more or less solved this problem for all of us because the way the text is written is completely unclear. And so you just need to make up your mind how you're going to do this. Here's how the henchmen solved it, and you're welcome to use our solution. So on the map, there's another little area over here, and it has one of these, the map shows in a couple places these sort of statues that can slide out of the way, and it shows the tracks that they slide on to move back to allow you to get into these heavily guarded areas. All right. The problem is the description in the text doesn't say how this is connected to this hallway. It says something vague about an L-shaped corridor and two alcoves facing each other, but nothing in that description actually matches the map. The map literally just has like a little T-shaped corridor here where there's an important treasure. But it does say something in the text about a shaft that they have to shine the light up the shaft. Now, I went ahead and used word search on the PDF to find out every reference to the word shaft, above, up, everything, to try to see if I was missing in some of the text. Like, there is nothing in the description of this hallway that tells you that there's any kind of shaft anywhere. But, again, a Reddit user came up with one possible interpretation of this, and that is there's basically a shaft in the ceiling. There's basically a hole in the ceiling. Is there a ladder? Is there any kind of way that you're supposed to climb up there? This is kind of a library. Do you bring one of those ladder things that you have in a library that you roll that thing? It doesn't say. But basically the characters have to bounce the light here, and then they have to bounce the light up and then over into this little area off the map over here in order to open something up. Okay, so basically they really just don't explain that in the text, and one of the reasons I'm making this video is just to give you a heads up so that you can get in there. I did several Google searches on it, and like I said, I only found one Reddit thread where this was being addressed. So I don't know, maybe a lot of people aren't getting this far in the campaign, or they're just not sharing their solution. But my solution is, for whatever reason, there's a hole in the ceiling, and then once the party finds it, then they've got to figure out a way to climb up there. They're 8th level, so, they've got to find a way to climb up there, however far it is, 20 feet, 30 feet. And then they have to basically have a shield somehow sort of hovering in midair. It does say that in the text, which is why this solution is to be preferred. It says something about an alcove, but if the hole is over here, then you have to have 2 more shields in order to reflect the light around the corner and then up. So I just put it directly over the intersection. The party finds some way to climb up there. My party has an immovable rod from earlier in the adventure, back when they were first level, and they're able to reflect the light over, or they will be. They haven't figured this out yet. They'll be able to reflect the light over and then open up this last area. So those are the problems with the dungeon. If you found this helpful, or if you already knew about this, let us know in the comments, and please give us a thumbs up so we know that people are getting use out of this. The dungeon is definitely not all bad. There's some cool stuff in here. I do like the light puzzle. It's a nice change of pace. You also get a situation where the mummies are the same type that the party had to deal with back at St. Brenna's tomb when they were 2nd or 3rd level, and now they're dealing with a lot more of them, but they have these same properties, and if the party remembers how they dealt with them way back at 2nd level, then they'll have a leg up in dealing with the monsters and mummies in here. So anyway, like I say, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and join us next time for the Henchman's Memoirs.